Hello everyone, and thank you for taking the time to listen in. Today I will be discussing the Harvard Business School case study on Paul Levy and the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. The case highlights the merge of both the Beth Israel and Deaconess hospitals and presents the crises that emerged as a result of mismanagement and organizational culture and structural issues. It serves as an excellent example of the importance of effective management practices, and that being said, for the purposes of this University of Massachusetts Dartmouth public management course, I will be highlighting the specific management strategies that were implemented throughout the case and what impact they had on the medical center. Before we can really delve into the details of how Paul Levy helped to turn around the fate of the medical center, it is important to first provide you with some background information. Here in this slide, you will see that I have made an attempt to contextualize the timeline of events pertinent to this case. In 1896, as part of their missionary charter, Methodist deaconesses founded Deaconess Hospital. Beth Israel Hospital was founded by the Boston Jewish community in 1916 to meet the needs of the city's growing immigrant population. Both hospitals did considerably well, but were culturally different, which I will discuss later on in this presentation. In 1994, the Brigham and Women's Hospital and Mass General Hospital merged to form Partners Health System. The merge was an attempt on behalf of officials to gain market share by being able to serve a greater portion of patients. In doing so, it was expected that the hospitals would be better placed to negotiate with insurance companies. This move was one that was decided on in a somewhat over-the-weekend process, and when the news broke to the other hospitals, you can imagine it was quite threatening. That being said, in 1996, Beth Israel and Deaconess Hospitals merged to form Care Group. This merge was a largely defensive strategy in a scrambled attempt to match the competitive advantage that was attained by Partners. The Beth Israel Deaconess began to run a negative operating loss that in 1998 began to creep around the $50 million mark. The growing deficit on the center prompted management to strategize. In 1998, Jim Reinerstein, CEO of the Beth Israel Deaconess, held a 3-day retreat which brought together many leadership personnel, including Paul Levy, to plan the future of Care Group. In 1999, Reinerstein proposed a 3-part strategic plan in an attempt to improve the center's financial situation. The plan called for a focus on high-paying surgical procedures, which meant competing head-to-head with other hospitals' specialties. Another aim to this hopeful strategy was to create an affiliation with a drug company that could generate money for the center. Finally, the plan also suggested that they would sell off surplus real estate. It should also be noted that this plan called for the closure of the obstetrics unit. The Beth Israel Obstetrics Department was one of the largest and most well-known in the Boston area and was considered a specialty. Paul Levy critiqued the plan, suggesting that the BIDMC was not well suited for the high-cost surgeries and that closing the obstetrics units was impractical. In 2001, Reinerstein was fired and Bob Meltzer stepped in as an interim CEO. Immediately, he formed a CEO search committee, made attempts to rebuild administrative and staff relations, and he also formed a steering committee of which Paul Levy was a member. Finally, the Hunter Group, which was a consulting firm, was brought in to assess the BIDMC and develop a report of assessment to help guide next steps. The merger of the Beth Israel and the Deaconess Hospitals brought together two very different cultures. Beth Israel was a hospital known for its quality of care. Doctors and nurses spent extended amounts of time with each patient, and there was an emphasis on professional autonomy and creativity. On the other hand, Deaconess Hospital took a more business-side, commercialized approach, and was better known for its top-down management. It is important to understand these cultural differences between the two hospitals because these differences proved to be hurdles that later on Paul Levy would have to address. Before the merge, many people advised that the collaboration would in fact be a failure due to these differences. In fact, one of the key reasons that Partners was a success was because officials did not attempt to merge cultures. Rather, they focused on administrative gains to improve their leverage with insurance companies. The care group's financial crisis was a function of indecision, poor planning and implementation, and ineffective leadership. Prior to the merge, both hospitals had taken on a bit of financial trouble independently. When the Balanced Budget Act in 1996 placed restrictions on Medicare, hospitals everywhere felt the hit of reduced Medicare payments. Additionally, the Beth Israel and the Deaconess collectively did not do well making the transition from cost-plus to managed care. Care groups signed under-cost contracts with local insurers for fear of being left out, and officials chose to focus on quantity of patients instead of quality. Unfortunately, the BIDMC was losing money on each patient, and because of all of these piling factors, they began to run a consistently large annual operating loss. When Levy began his career at the BIDMC, the Attorney General had been pushing for the sale to a for-profit hospital to preserve its value. Levy convinced the Attorney General that the BIDMC could be recovered. Meanwhile, Levy made staff reductions and presented a strategic plan which was focused on quality patient care, revenue and volume growth, and expense management. The plan set a goal to break even by 2004. To do so, Levy planned to reduce endowment usage, build a broadened referral network, and lease unused property. In March, Levy created 5 implementation steering committees to carry out the proposed recovery plan. These committees were comprised of medical and administrative staff throughout the hospital, with the exception of the chief officers, who took a bit of offense when asked not to be a part of the committees, but eventually moved past the decision. During this time, Levy also made a couple of promotions to help to achieve some of the tasks of the strategic plan. He also worked to establish a president's committee to discuss care group and negotiate a breakup plan. These actions were all part of his greater strategy of leadership through empowerment and support. The April update revealed that there had been 600 job cuts, delayed pay raises, and that there were debt negotiations in the near future. However, the overall financial situation of the BIDMC was solid. Between the months of May through July, Levy successfully acquired the Glover Hospital in Needham, which was a positive move for all parties involved. Due to mounting differences in management styles, Levy fired the COO and hired a new leader who was better aligned for the position and vision of the center. In July, the CFO worked to restructure the debt in an attempt to improve relations between affiliated hospitals. However, Mount Auburn Hospital voted to disaffiliate. At the 6-month mark, the BIDMC was in a phase of strong performance. They had 2 profitable months and now had a stronger sense of leadership and clear achievable goals. To review, prior to Paul Levy's hire, Care Group was failing for a few different reasons. The initial rationale behind Care Group's establishment was not well reasoned. It was largely a scrambled move and a reaction to the threatening creation of Partners. Instead of leveraging themselves to be better fit to negotiate with payers, which was Partners' rationale, they made an attempt to blend the hospital's cultures, which proved to be a huge mistake. Finally, when financial crisis was kicked in, the attempts made to establish change were not followed through, and the goals were unspecific and generally lacked measurability. Paul Levy led a successful turnaround of the organization. His self-quoted empowering and supporting management style helped to boost the hospital personnel's level of involvement and rebuild their trust. He also embedded mechanisms to institute change. These primary mechanisms were evident through his demonstrated reactions to the varying organizational crises. his allocation of reward and status to the few selected and promoted staff members, and his methods behind the recruitment and excommunication of certain key people. Each decision was carefully thought out and set the tone and culture for the new direction of the BIDMC. Along the way, Levy worked to help develop specific, clear, and attainable goals, and created select groups of varying levels of personnel together to implement each objective. He put much thought into the creation of these groups, which proved to be worthwhile in all aspects. Additionally, he made a commitment to transparency and took a very straightforward approach. This was evident through his decisions to email the entire staff and be as open and honest as possible. It was also evident through his decision to release the Hunter Report publicly. In sum, Levy succeeded in all the key areas where Care Group previously had not, and he was effective in many key aspects of public management. This concludes my presentation on Paul Levy taking over the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. For more information about the case study, you can purchase it through the Harvard Business School publishing website. Also, for some supplemental information about organizational culture and leadership and how leaders embed mechanisms, please view the second citation included on this slide.